Scone's $90 million bypass might be still 5 years away from being complete, but Upper Hunter Shire Council has already started preparing for life in the centre of town after heavy vehicles.
We want Kelly Street and Scone, for example, to be ready to go. Implement those big, bold ideas and have a CBD in all of our towns that reflects who we are and is inviting.
There isn't a plan for Scone quite as clear as the options for the bypass itself, but Council has a vision.
When our bypass is up and running, if we can take that back, for example, to one lane each way, angle parking, many areas of off the footpath where al fresco dining.
Cal Brownlee owns a new cafe on Kelly Street. For him, less traffic and a bit more country charm would only be a good thing.
We're hoping that we can get seats out on the pavements. When you take those big heavy trucks from the path, sometimes like especially cattle trucks and that, it's not real appealing to be sitting on the side of the road.
Let's not think that anything is out of reach. So we want your ideas and we need you to contribute.
Vivian von Drainen, NBN News.
We can see a flashing light. Can you confirm that flashing light is associated with you, Emma?
The flashing light is from our life raft that is deployed from the stern of the boat, over.
Hopes were high for the Hunter stablemates. Suave Stewie Lombo had never been beaten over the distance at Menangle, while Easy on the Eye was going into the Miracle Mile after an impressive month of racing. The script couldn't have started any better. The pair set the pace on the back straight, but it was the defending champion and hot favourite Bow Tide who forced the issue in the home run. Today, Shane Tritton lamented what might have been.
We need luck early. Our race was probably decided pretty early on in the race, but if we got to the front, it probably would have been a different story.
It was a less than ideal meeting all round for the Tritton stable. Out of its 17 entries in the 10-race program, not one figured in the top placings.
We had a lot of our best chances drew wide, and with a couple of them that we thought could win, struck trouble. So it was definitely a tough night.
Michael Kane, NBN News.
This busy little coffee spot on Beaumont Street could be about to get even busier. Practically located on the Hamilton train station's doorstep, once the truncation takes place, management at Rollador is expecting travellers to make the most of the stop on the way to the bus.
The truncation here will definitely benefit us. We've got increased foot traffic. The volume of people getting off here is going to increase. With the the buses going every 10 minutes, we're going to be under the pump, hopefully.
Just over a week ago, due to track work, buses replaced trains between Hamilton and Newcastle, giving the small business a chance to experience what Boxing Day may bring.
Last Saturday sales were up definitely by at least 10% just on the Saturdays.
But with the extra business came a few opinions.
There was not very good comments coming from commuters on the rail line. There was a lot of inconvenience and it takes a lot more time. There was a gentleman from Stroud actually who it took him 5 hours to get from Sydney and then he had to stop here.
CEO of the Hunter Business Chamber, Kristen Keegan, expects the entire area to enjoy benefits of some kind.
In this transition phase, and it's important to remember that it is a transition phase, there will be some opportunities for some of these businesses in that area.
Vivian von Drainen, NBN News.
It's one of the region's most anticipated projects and locals are watching its progress closely. A large section of walkway at the northern end of the Memorial Walk has been built using a highly durable coated composite fibre. And as it takes shape, we're seeing for the first time the views from the actual clifftop boardwalk.
We're about a third the way through the construction project on site. There's a lot more still happening off-site in factory, stainless steel bridges being built.
This section near Strzelecki Lookout will connect to a long stainless steel bridge due to the unstable cliff top. Work is underway on the viewing platform at the southern end above Bar Beach.
Then in January, February, March next year there'll be a couple of very big cranes, craning big bridges onto the precast columns that will go in January.
The area will then be replanted with native shrubs. Acting as a memorial for the 100th anniversary of the Anzac landings at Gallipoli, the project will also mark BHP Billiton's 100-year association with the Hunter. An inaccessible part of our coast will soon be quite the opposite.
From Strzelecki Lookout to the trig point, you'll be able to get disabled access right through to the main point where you can get a 360-degree view of the Hunter Valley, the ocean and the city.
Rutherford company Wager Construction says the early April deadline will be met, ready for Anzac Day. Jane Goldsmith, NBN News. Inside Fort Scratchley, deep within the tunnels, you can find a devoted team of volunteers, and today they gathered to celebrate a very special labour of love, the return of the Nordenfeldt gun. It's taken 30 years of blood, sweat and tears to restore the fort's big shot.
I don't think words can describe how happy I am that it's back up at the fort and it works. It's just fantastic.
They say the fort's now unique in all of the world.
We're the only fort that can trace its way from the beginning 130 years to the end of every gun. So we've got a working piece of every gun that was ever up here.
The Nordenfeldt gun, which has a range of almost 3 kilometres, was originally installed in 1898.
At the end of World War I in 1918 it was sent to Sydney and it stayed in Sydney in a park where it was just destroyed. Everything was stolen off it. In 1985 it was returned to the fort.
That's when the lengthy restoration process began, a near-complete overhaul with new parts manufactured locally. It cost about $80,000, with dozens of businesses donating materials and man-hours. Volunteers from the Fort Scratchley Historical Society today celebrated the completion of the project, thanking Hunter Water for a $20,000 grant. And we helped test the firing sequence before its formal debut on Australia Day. Jane Goldsmith, NBN News.
We've taken over council. It's a race to the end with any sort of event like this, and we're certainly prepared and we're certainly very organised, but there's just a whole lot of things that have to happen in this week.
We hit the rocks and we had massive damage, and the immediate concern was just for people to be able to hang on.
Each gown made with love and care to honour a tiny life, and inside the little box delivered to neonatal intensive care units, a little pendant Mum gets to keep. Priceless gifts to parents who have a stillborn baby.
A lot of the mothers have actually been saying how it has helped them on starting their journey of being without their baby and the bereavement that they have to go through. It's a very long journey that they go through.
The Helping Hands Angel Gown program started in March this year. A donation day was held at Belmont in Lake Macquarie over the weekend, where people could bring in formal or wedding gowns.
It's also a wonderful place to come and share your story and spend some time with other families and other women who've actually been through the same thing.
Sadly, most of the women who run the organisation know the pain of losing a child all too well, such as Fiona Kirk, who founded Helping Hands in Canberra, and Katrina Sheraton-Yu, who 4 years ago lost a baby boy at 35 weeks gestation.
Looking back, I do have a lot of regret in that I didn't spend more time with him, but also that I didn't, get the opportunity to choose something for him to wear and dress him.
At the time, she didn't know what services were available. Volunteering has been a huge part of her healing process.
Now it makes me quite passionate about making sure that families know what's available to them at that time, and that they're encouraged to see what's available without being pushed, just encouraged, so that then a few years on they can look back and they have that memory.
In such a small amount of time, the group has touched many and grown so much. About 2,000 dresses have been made, with 1,500 donated to hospitals and privately. 250 women volunteer Australia-wide.
With our Angel Gown program, we hope to one day be able to be there for every Australian family that loses a baby.
If you'd like to be part of the program, you can visit the group's website or Facebook page. Vivian von Drainen, NBN News.
Everyone was fighting for spots before, and now the team. It's we're sort of working on a few more set plays.
Another match where the Jets had that winning feeling.
Smiles all round on the Jets bench.
Only to let it slip away.
We got ourselves the goal again, and we just can't seem to bring it home.
The 1-1 draw against the Mariners in yesterday's F3 derby continued Newcastle's winless season.
We had some really good chances to win the game today, and unfortunately we didn't take them.
In the end, the home side very nearly came away with nothing. Jets defender Sam Galloway believes just one victory will turn his side's fortunes around.
We just got to get that first win, I think, and then you never know what could happen. Hopefully we get a few in a row and start climbing the ladder, because that's what we need.
Michael Kane, NBN News. The setting for a race that's set to push even the fittest to the limit.
Just taking soft sand running and racing to a whole new level.
The inaugural Dunebusters Challenge at Stockton Beach will see more than 500 runners tackle a 7-kilometre course. One man who can't wait for the December 14 event to start is triathlete and Ironman Courtney Atkinson.
Anything that's unique, new, adventure, I'm a sucker for. And soft sand, a unique location that I'd never come to otherwise. Some of the biggest sand dunes in Australia, and I was like, I'm in.
While he'll use the race as preparation for upcoming triathlon events, winning it would mean plenty.
As a triathlete, my training, I live in the forest. My second home is the forest. Hills, rough terrain, all of that is going to help me here at Dune Dusters.
Organiser Dave Robertson oversees various running events around the Hunter, and encouraging people to have a go is his mantra.
Always on the lookout for new and exciting events and new and exciting ways to encourage people to get moving.
Michael Kane, NBN News.
This government should wait until after the March election when, the people of Newcastle have another chance to say what they really believe.
Retired couple Penny Pepper and Mike Angold thought they had found their piece of paradise, only to be told almost 6 months into their time at Koala Shores Holiday Park they have to leave.
And after paying $33,000 for the privilege of staying here so far, 64 days, we really were shocked.
38 park occupants have received this notice of eviction, asking them to either remove or demolish their sites, as the operators have decided to cater for tourists only. There are options. If they leave by the 23rd of December, operators will cover any removal or disposal costs. But those still in the park in early May will have to foot the bill themselves. In a statement to NBN News, the park operators say occupants are welcome to stay until then, and that the December departure date is for anyone who does not want to take their caravan with them.
Whilst there were options attached to the letter, the only feasible option in terms of their affordability is to leave before Christmas.
That's the case for Penny and Mike. With nowhere to move their home to, they say they're being forced to leave it behind.
We have a friend who can demolish it for us after we go, and that's all we can do. We don't get anything. There's no, compensation, nothing.
Emma Murphy, NBN News.
Cardiff Fire Station made modern. The $2.4 million redevelopment of the building was today celebrated by the community.
This was the best place for a fire station. We looked for alternative sites, and response time wise this is perfect, so we invested in this old fire station.
It's now basically a brand new station, from cramped and outdated to this, a new engine bay, gym, locker rooms and private quarters, not to forget a few traditional items.
The firefighters remained on premises and demountables out the back, but with their efforts we were able to achieve what we have today.
The original station was built in 1971. 43 years later, this redevelopment will help meet the needs of the growing Lake Macquarie area.
This station is one of the busiest in our area of command here.
And at Salamander Bay, a completely new building. A $1.9 million project has replaced the small station built in 1963 in Nelson Bay.
With the expanding community up there, it was in the wrong place in terms of response times. So a big fire station that fits their 2 fire engines and their crew of 14 firefighters. It's a great investment in protection of the people of the Hunter.
Vivian von Drainen, NBN News. It might have happened decades ago, but every one of the people in these photos remembers the Newcastle earthquake like it was yesterday. A paramedic at the time, Bruce Hounslow, was sent to 2 of the worst hit areas, Beaumont Street and the Newcastle Workers Club.
It was just fantastic the way we all came together. It was just like Newcastle does in times of crisis. Everybody bands together on a day to help each other out.
But they're also memories he doesn't like to revisit too often.
We don't talk about it too much, but days like this, it just brings the thoughts back together. It's been an emotional thing this morning.
The earthquake was one of the worst natural disasters in Australia's history. 14 people died and it caused $4 billion worth of damage. But amid the destruction, there was a story of beauty and life. Kate Wells gave birth to her 3rd child, Melissa, in Newcastle Hospital, just moments before the tremor forced its evacuation.
The doctor sort of ran out and he's just come back and said, look, we've got 5 minutes to get out of here. It was an earthquake. They just ripped the drip out, threw me in a wheelchair, threw Melissa in my arms and out we went. So yeah, and it was so hot that day.
Now Melissa is all grown up, a school teacher with 2 little girls of her own and one memorable story about how she came into the world.
I don't know how Mum handled it. Afterwards you get really tired and I couldn't imagine having to be rushed out of the hospital for something like that.
And that's just some of the 25 stories on display at the museum.
I don't want people to forget the stories. I don't want people to forget what happened in this town, so they can
they can know about it and they can feel pride in their community that chipped in and did wonderful things.
The exhibition will run until February 8. Vivian von Drainen, NBN News.
For these girls, spending time with their dads is much more than just fun. With 3 daughters, Professor Phil Morgan has his hands full, but thanks to some help from Port Waratah Coal Services, HMRI and the Hunter Children's Research Foundation, he's created the DAD-EE, or Daddy Program. Over 8 weeks, these father-daughter duos will be put through their paces, improving the fitness and physical competence of the young girls, and in turn their social and emotional well-being.
Girls are less active than boys at all ages. They start sport 2 years later. Less than 10% can perform basic fundamental movement skills by the time they leave primary school, and by age 13, 80% do not meet physical activity recommendations.
The initiative is based on research showing the powerful influence fathers have in shaping their daughters' self-esteem and resilience.
There is so much that is marketed to young girls that focus on physical appearance and not physical function. So this program has a very big focus on breaking down gender stereotypes. Their body's an instrument, not an ornament.
But perhaps the most important benefit is for the bond between dad and daughter.
Do you have fun with Dad? Yeah.
Emma Murphy, NBN News.
Newcastle may be yet to taste victory this season, but back at training today, the players were determined not to let the negatives of recent weeks weigh them down.
There's no denying it, but we've got to try and put a positive spin on it as much as we can. That's what we want to do.
Adrian Madashi made his return from injury against Brisbane in round 6, and the defender says he's yet to hit peak fitness.
I think you can see it in the games that I managed to get through the first half quite well, and then the fitness sort of tapers off.
He's certainly not alone. Assistant coach Michael Bridges admits fatigue is one of many issues the team's working to overcome.
Every week it's getting better and better. There's issues that we're fixing, and then there's certain ones that we can't seem to fix at the minute. But bit by bit, the jigsaw's coming together.
The performance has been there, the effort's been there. There's just that little bit of something that's lacking.
The Jets will have to get it together sooner rather than later. This Saturday they host Wellington Phoenix, a side fresh from belting Melbourne City 5-1.
This season I think it's been Wellington's strongest team in the front third. They've always been structurally good with Sigmund and Durante at the back. You know what you're going to get, it's a battle.
Amanda Douglas, NBN News.
We'd like to think we're capable of getting there, so we've got to get ourselves in the finals, and once we get in there, it's anyone's ball game.
Newcastle's Aaron Russell says this year's V8 development series has been one to remember for the most part.
If you take away the first 2 rounds of this year, I mean, this year's been one of my best to date. So Bathurst was a good round for us. We had a few issues with the power steering throughout the weekend that we finally fixed on Saturday before the race. We actually fixed it in the warm-up session. And then, the car was a different beast to drive.
The 23-year-old says early in the season the decision was made to take the car north.
We actually prepare it in Queensland now, and I go to Queensland to prepare the car for a couple of days.
The added expertise from the move has translated to the track, with Russell recording some of his best results to date, including a podium finish at Ipswich. This Friday, the series heads to Homebush for the Sydney 500. The Novocastrian doesn't have the same financial backing as some, so every second on the track is crucial to his chances.
Other teams do 6 test days a year and we do 1. We have 2 months gap in between from Bathurst to Homebush, so you kind of have to relearn everything when you get back in the car, but, it's I'm very lucky to do what I do. Just to qualify up in that top 10, and I think we'll be able to race in the top 5. If we do that, I think anything's possible, even a podium.
Amanda Douglas, NBN News.
Last week's tragedy brought back a flood of memories for Rick McCosker.
We've got a pretty tenuous hold on life that anything could happen at any time, and unfortunately for Philip it did happen.
The centenary test in 1977 saw McCosker felled by a now infamous Bob Willis short ball.
We all think we're a bit indestructible, that nothing is going to happen to me. But when something like this does happen, you tend to change your thinking a little bit.
After finishing up as a financial planner 2 years ago, the cricket grade is now a Catholic chaplain for a Wickham-based mission.
We have a team of volunteers and we look after the many seafarers that come into our Newcastle port.
But tonight he'll oversee a public service to remember Philip Hughes.
There was an outpouring of interest, concern initially, and then grief. Not everyone's able to go to the funeral, maybe to go to a memorial service in Sydney. So this is just an opportunity for us to get together here in Newcastle.
The service gets underway at Christchurch Cathedral at 7 p.m. Michael Kane, NBN News.
Trying to beat the Premier to the punch. A day before Mike Baird's due in town, John Robertson swooped in to talk poles and wires with Hunter pensioners, claiming that if the proposed sale goes ahead, people will feel the pinch.
No private operator is going to spend billions of dollars buying the electricity network to give people a discount. They're buying it to make money.
The government says the move will deliver $20 billion for public works throughout the state, but Mr Robertson argues that figure isn't worth the loss in annual dividends from electricity companies.
The last thing we need to be doing is selling off a revenue-generating asset that delivers almost $1 billion.
The state government argues that private ownership would have no adverse impact on electricity prices and that no matter who owns the network, charges will always be monitored by the Australian Energy Regulator. Today, a spokesperson for the Premier claimed that John Robertson is perpetuating a massive lie and that evidence shows prices would fall. But when Mike Baird finally returns to the region tomorrow, the proposed sale is expected to be pushed down the agenda, with the rail line and Liberal candidates for the March election likely to dominate.
He hasn't fronted up for over 100 days. They haven't pre-selected candidates.
Vivian von Drainen, NBN News.
These results are on the back of some really good years in terms of downturn in crime, and I think it's important for the community to know that this isn't just an aberration. This is actually really good results
The Christmas spirit was alive and rocking at the Stockton Centre. As residents joined by local school children waited for Santa to pay a visit. It's a tradition more than 40 years long, which sees members of the public celebrate with those at the Residential Disability Centre.
We just thought it would be a great opportunity for them to see other people who have disabilities and enjoy a fun Christmas celebration with them.
Santa's helpers and some big guns were called in to keep the children entertained, but after 2 hours of waiting, patience began to wear out. Theories emerged about the man in red's whereabouts.
Rudolph's nose went melted, so no fire went on.
Probably he's just flying around somewhere.
But finally, Santa appeared in spectacular, if non-traditional, fashion.
Santa, where's all your reindeer?
They're having a rest today because it's far too hot, so we had to come by helicopter and dolphin earlier, yes.
Sadly, this could be the last Christmas party of its kind here at the Stockton Centre, as the state government has been granted the power to close facilities like this under the National Disability Insurance Scheme.
We've heard that the Air Force has been, which is next door, has been sold off to a housing group, so I think that's probably a good chance of what will happen here.
Madeline McKell, NBN News.
It's designed for 16 years and under, and the kids love inflatables, so we've just added some water in there and they go crazy.
It's a sign of new times ahead for a proud club. After struggling to be competitive in Newcastle and Hunter Rugby's Premier Division in 2012, a big decision was made.
We dropped back for a couple of years to rebuild. We needed to do that at the time. It was a fairly tough decision.
After 2 seasons of competing in the lower grades, Singleton Rugby Club now believes it's ready to return to the top in 2015. On Monday night, the Bulls presented their case to the NHRU for readmission to the Premier tier.
In principle, the board has agreed, provided that Singleton Rugby Club meet a number of conditions set by the board. Those conditions might include a monetary bond.
A string of premierships in the 1990s saw the Red and Blacks become a Hunter Rugby powerhouse, with Wallabies halfback Steve Merrick leading the Bulls charge. But now the club believes it's about taking small steps by promoting within, while at the same time adding a sprinkling of experience.
We've got some very talented juniors coming through. We need to probably have a long-term plan, so it's not a short-term plan. We don't expect miracles next year, but I think in the rebuild we probably need some people to come in.
Michael Kane, NBN News.
She has the voice of an angel, and Lily Ashcroft sings from the heart.
I chose that song because it connected to me in some sort of way, because I've always been pushed down. It was really good. I want to do it again.
Lily, along with 17 other acts, took to the stage in Newcastle today at the Real Factor, an event held to mark the International Day of People with Disability. The event encourages anyone living with a disability to show off their talent, something Georgia Kumar exudes. Meanwhile, Rosie's School of Rock has produced this band, Weekend Getaway.
They're a bunch of guys. They have varying disabilities, both intellectual or physical, and they're just using the band as a way to get together as a bunch of mates and get out there and play some music and hopefully make a career out of it. So I'm really stoked for them.
Emma Murphy, NBN News.
It's been 107 days since Mike Baird last visited Newcastle, but this morning he looked right at home. The Premier, though, didn't win everyone over.
Well, he just zoomed past, really. We didn't have a chance to catch up with him at all, to be honest.
Flanked by the Minister for the Hunter, Mr Baird then told a meeting of community stakeholders the future of the city's rail corridor now rests with Newcastle Council.
Ultimately, this becomes the people's project.
It was welcome news to Lord Mayor Nuatali Nelms.
It's better that the council has final determination over what happens, because I know I'll be working to protect that corridor.
Nothing goes forward in this public corridor unless they give it a tick.
As for what the Premier thinks the move means for potential development,
I don't want to limit the plans and the ideas and the opportunities that come forward. I want to see all of them, and I want the community to see all of them.
And let's see that the government fulfil the obligation that's just been given by the Premier.
They said they never have any development on the rail line, and sure enough, we've got it. It's on the way.
While the government may have tried to distance itself from one issue, it's full steam ahead for the rail line's impending truncation. Today it was announced 5 new pedestrian crossings will be installed early next year.
The whole point of truncating rail services from Boxing Day was to get on with the job with really opening up the city.
Amanda Douglas, NBN News.
There is an investigation underway, and obviously we need that inquiry to be completed, and we'll obviously have plenty to say once it is completed.
Joseph Popov is passionate about his education. He has a Certificate 3 in Financial Services, majoring in accounting, and now he's applied to study law at the University of Newcastle.
I'm grateful for being able to come to TAFE because it allowed to give me an opportunity to explore the avenues in which I wanted to go into.
But there are concerns that opportunity may not be there for others in the future. The Teachers Federation fears that under the Baird government's smart and skilled model, the number of teaching consultants for students with a disability in the Hunter will be cut from 9 to 4.
They prepare them for the classes, assist them with those classes and then help them with completing their course, inevitably to try and get employment.
It follows 47 Hunter TAFE teachers and support staff being offered voluntary redundancies on Tuesday.
If they don't accept that voluntary redundancy within 3 months, they'll be made forced redundant. So it's a very, very difficult period for those 47 teachers now, and we're trying to give them support.
The Premier is standing by his policy.
We remain very committed to TAFE, and at the same time, I mean, there is a requirement in terms of a taxpayer to provide value for money in the provision of that.
Emma Murphy, NBN News.
It looked like a cuppa and a chat, but this was no mere morning tea for two of Newcastle's religious leaders. Bishop Bill Wright spent the morning at the Wallsend Mosque pledging his support for the city's Muslim community, following a difficult few weeks in which worshippers have been subjected to verbal attacks and physical abuse. Most recently, police were called to the mosque after a rotting pig's head was thrown into the grounds.
Most Australians aren't like that. To those who are, what would I say? I'd say, don't do it. This is crazy. These are good people.
Both faiths were actively discussed between the mosque's worshippers and visiting Catholic parishioners, with the importance of the meeting not lost on either group.
It means a lot to us. I think we're hoping that this and to have the support of their community and to have their community members come and meet with our community members, and we look forward to an ongoing relationship.
This is a step, and we'll be having more contacts together. And I think, as so often in human life, the better you know people, the warmer the ties and the connections are.
Madeline McKell, NBN News.
It's considered one of the toughest yacht races in the world, but that doesn't deter Danielle Ovenden.
We're probably just the mid-fleet making up the numbers, but that doesn't mean we'll try just as hard as the big guys.
On Boxing Day, the former Yabby farmer will line up for her fourth Sydney to Hobart, but this time she'll be leading a 10-person crew on board the 28-year-old 15-metre yacht. Let's go.
We've had a couple of offshore races in the last few weeks, and we've tested a few things out, broken a few things, but ultimately we're pretty pleased with how she's going again. We've spent 9 months getting to this point. We've got 22 days to go.
She believes the lead-up is the hardest part.
I usually find just the adrenaline. It's so hard to describe. There's just so much nerves going on. You get to the point you just want to start. That first few hours of Boxing Day is fairly stressful.
But it doesn't get any easier out of Sydney Heads.
We've had our moments out there, yeah, for sure. I was in the 98 race, so we definitely had some moments then. But I mean, any year you expect that you're going to cop a bit of a bashing on the way down.
Michael Kane, NBN News. With one round remaining in the regular season, the Jets have a finals berth in their sights.
All we're concerned about right now is just going down there and doing a job on Saturday, and then what will be will be. I think the main focus is, to get into the semis.
Newcastle is currently 5th on the ladder and only 1 point outside the top 4. A win over Sydney FC will see the Jets fly past the Sky Blues. Jasmine Spencer's goal separated the two sides earlier in the season as Newcastle struggled to put away chances.
The goalkeeper for Sydney FC, Casey Dumont, had a blinder, and I know she's back in goal, so she's going to be definitely a big asset for them.
The Jets go into the match on the back of a solid win over Adelaide. American import Victoria Huster gave her side the perfect start.
If we can stick one to them early, I think that might put some more doubt in their heads and will give us definitely more confidence going into the game.
Going into the season, the skipper wasn't too confident about making the finals, but her opinion changed quickly.
Looking back from round one, when we first got that win against Melbourne, I think I kind of stood back a little bit and thought, hold on a minute, like we could definitely go to the top four.
Michael Kane, NBN News.
It's a lovely partnership, and it really celebrates the biological connection that we have with the Northern Hemisphere.
A very close encounter at Murray's Beach. Clinton Bamback got more than he bargained for during a fishing trip at the southeastern end of Lake Macquarie yesterday, when a 2.5 to 3 metre great white shark started swimming close to the jetty.
You see a lot of footage where people have it from out in their boats, or you see them outside in the water, but you never see them in just over waist deep water at your feet on a jetty, which is quite phenomenal, so I was pretty happy with that.
That same shark was spotted again this morning by fisheries officers during a routine patrol at nearby Cam's Wharf.
And we noticed a black object probably about 100 yards away, so we naturally drove towards it. And funny enough, it turned out to be the great white.
Sharks are not an uncommon sight in Lake Macquarie. Experts say an abundance of food is the likely attraction.
Obviously they're looking for food, so if the schools of fish that they feed upon move into those bay areas, then the sharks will move in to follow the food source.
Signs were erected at the jetty this afternoon to warn of the potential danger. Authorities say people should be aware but not alarmed.
Just be wary and careful. You can't stop people from going swimming, but just be advised that there is a white shark in the lake, and didn't appear to be aggressive to us, but you can't tell with these animals.
The sighting was, however, enough to deter some.
Oh, surprised, yeah, but I know that they are out there, yeah, for sure.
We used to water ski here, especially just around at Cam's Wharf, but it's kind of put the heebie-jeebies on me now.
As for whether Clinton will be taking a dip soon,
Don't think I'll be swimming again in the lake after what I've just seen. It was pretty full on and a big animal to be playing with, so I'll just keep my feet on dry land, I think.
Renee Feder, NBN News.
This is the Asian Cup. I've seen the European Cups in Europe. The Asian Cup is huge, and if people need to embrace it in Australia, get behind it, come and watch the games. It's a huge event. You're going to have some of the greatest players in the world on display, and it's on our doorstep. So get behind the Asian Cup, guys.
With less than 48 hours to go, it's now a race to the start line.
There's a lot of people working very, very hard, but it'll definitely be ready.
Spears Point Park's adjoining sporting facilities, the public pool and Macquarie football fields are being primped ahead of the arrival of 1,500 athletes this weekend. But today's preparations were all about the big opening, to be hosted by NBN's own Natasha Bayersdorf and Paul Lobb.
The stage is set for Sunday night's opening ceremony, where over 25,000 people will fill Spears Point Park for an extravaganza of carols by candlelight, local and surprise acts.
We have some very special surprises happening throughout the opening ceremony that I can't tell you about. You'll have to be here.
While the opening ceremony is shrouded in secrecy, we've caught glimpses of the local campaign calling on the community to become a part of the international event. It's the largest multi-sport youth games in the world and will see kids from 30 countries compete in 8 sports, with the tournament starting on Monday.
However, they will be at training all day Sunday, so they'll get to go to the venues on Sunday and then Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday competition.
NBN will live stream the opening ceremony on our website from 5 p.m. on Sunday. Georgina Smythe, NBN News. They've been a fixture on the state's roads for a month, but finally the blocks Maxine and Karsten are a stone's throw from home.
It feels good, but it's also very difficult because we know how long we have left to go, whereas usually we're just walking and we don't know where we are. So I think it's going to be a long couple of days.
Their journey started all the way back in October, when they were fitted out with official walking gear. But Karsten has since ditched the joggers for his trusty thongs to complete the final leg of the journey. The pair hiked from Terrigal Beach to Lake Munmora today after arriving on the Central Coast for some R&R yesterday. After leaving Melbourne on November 7, the Newcastle couple has raised $17,000 for the Starlight Foundation.
We're trying to grant Starlight Wishes this Christmas. I think we're trying to grant around 18, so we're just trying to get people around Australia to dig deep and donate.
Over, $1,500 in donations today, so it's been really good.
The pair will finish the Mammoth Trek tomorrow afternoon, walking from Swansea to Merewether.
Meet us at 2 o'clock, Dixon Park Beach tomorrow, and yeah, we'll be there, just chilling out, raising some money.
We'll be sweaty.
Details on how to donate can be found on our website. Georgina Smythe, NBN News.
We hope to have about 1,500 Santas down on the foreshore this Sunday, but registration's still open.
Just when Marcos Flores thought he was back to full fitness, another setback.
He's played 2 good games for us. Unfortunately, he's got a slight strain with a hamstring, so it ties our hands in that regard. I didn't really want to get that on camera.
His injury now means Andrew Houle will come into the starting lineup against a Wellington Phoenix side that's coming off a 5-1 victory over Melbourne City. One man who the Jets will look to keep quiet is former player Nathan Burns, who last weekend produced a hat-trick.
He's going to be somebody that we need to keep our eye on. He's set the A-League on fire a little bit of late. Disappointingly, I think, for many Jets fans.
While at the other end of the park, Newcastle will look to provide their Ecuadorian striker Edson Montano.
Sort of finding his feet now. He hit the post last week with a wonderful header, and he's got himself a couple of goals, and he seems to be growing stronger and stronger.
Tomorrow's match kicks off at Hunter Stadium at 5. Michael Kane, NBN News.
You Can Talk goes to the early lead and leads by a length at the line the first time. Kibo up to second, Kismika Tut third, followed by Fusaichi Khan into the fray. And they've broken away then from exhibition. Fusaichi Khan on the outside trying to go with him, but couldn't do so. Kibo exploded away. Kibo out in front of Fusaichi Khan. Kibo, brilliant. 3 lengths to Fusaichi Khan. Kismika Tut got third, Cindy Special fourth, Over Vision was fifth. Behind these then...
After winning through to the country final in Ballina a fortnight ago, Newcastle want more of the same against Western District.
We played good cricket and we batted very well, and we chased every game and batted well. So, Western are probably going to be a step above the teams we played up there.
They'll head into Sunday's decider, relying heavily on its strong batting lineup, which includes Stockton's in-form player Jeff Ganninan.
He's a great young talent, good kid, and he's doing really well. Last year he had a big year, and this year he's followed that on. So, it's great to see him go so well.
But before the side can leave for Orange on Saturday night, club commitments need to be met. Moore's club side Merriweather will be out to defend 371 runs it posted against Charlestown.
If we bowl well, they won't get them, and they're going to have to obviously bat very well, but we're not going to obviously take them lightly either.
The Lions are the defending Newcastle District champions and are currently second on the ladder, and their ability to adapt to all forms of the game will serve them well leading into the semis.
You're always checking the rules with the umpires every time you go out, you forget why you're playing one-day cricket, SCG Cup or T20s, and it's always changing the formats, but that's part of cricket these days.
Michael Kane, NBN News.